The people's rights and the government's powers are supposed to work together to benefit the governed people. The people's rights and the government's powers. Simplified government by design. The government's power, the people's rights. Similar words appear near the top of nearly every criminal case filed in nearly every court. In every criminal case, it speaks of where government power touches the people's rights. The error in thought is that only an individual's rights are affected on arrest when enforced. To obey or to not obey? That is the question. The governed, known as citizens, continuously face the question, do I obey a given government law, act, or order, or not? No one is above the law. Not even the law is above the law. No one should obey unconstitutional laws made by government, because the Constitution is the law over government. This requires knowing when a government act or an order violates the Constitution. The original design from 1776 was that the government's powers are supposed to work to equally protect each person's rights. Thus, people should think the government's powers and the people's rights because they are supposed to work together. When the social bond fails, and the people lose the will to hold their government officers accountable to the Constitution, the government's powers versus the people's rights take over. The government's powers and the people's rights, both working together, securing the governed people's rights. What are rights? The Declaration and the Constitution contain several examples of rights. From the Declaration: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness and property, alter, abolish, and throw off corrupt forms of government, consent or withholding consent, which are voting. The Constitution: speech, press, assembly, petition, keep and bear, secure in our privacy, vote. And with Amendment 9, the people retain all the unlisted rights. It states, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage other rights retained by the people. So, if it ain't listed, the governed people still retain it. Such rights include sleep, eat, breathe, smoke, drink, etc. Listed or not, rights are nothing more than actions, things individuals do. Protected rights may be exercised without asking the government for permission and without government infringement, so long as the person doing any of the retained rights is not unjustly violating others or their property. According to the Declaration, the governed people have no authority to allow or grant to government any power to regulate those rights. The people's rights are infinite in number. The governed people, citizens, as creators, maintainers, owners, and controllers over their government, they are obligated to obey those government-created laws and orders that the Constitution physically, in writing, authorizes. That authorization is determined by the text as it was written and what it meant at the time of writing by the generation of people who ratified it. What are government powers? The Declaration states, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. Limitations on government powers. First, governments are supposed to get their just and honorable powers directly from the governed people. Secondly, those just and honorable powers must be solidly connected to the equal security and protection of the people's rights. The Constitution at Article 1, Section 1 states, "All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and House of Representatives." The only job for the legislative branch is to pass constitutionally authorized government activity and to repeal all unconstitutional activity. The only job for the executive branch is to do what the legislators constitutionally authorize, not to create law or other government activity. The judicial branch is to try the law first, to see if it is constitutionally authorized, then to try the facts, if the law is constitutional, to see if the defendant did as accused, not to create law or other government activity. The Constitution at Amendment 9 states, "The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage other rights retained by the people." Amendment 9 restricts government powers against rights not listed. The Constitution at Amendment 10 states, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people." If the Constitution of the United States of America does not specifically grant a power to government, that power is off limits to all levels and branches of government to exercise. The Declaration, as quoted earlier, proves this fact, as it applies to every government branch and level. Amendment 14, Section 1 also proves the fact when it states, "No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." Old Dictionary time. Definition images from the older dictionaries may be viewed at Glossary of Old Words. Rights. 6. That which justly belongs to one. 7. Property, interest. 9. Immunity, privilege. Privilege. 1. Particular advantage. 2. Immunity, right, not universal. To privilege. 1. To invest with rights or immunity, to grant a privilege. 2. To exempt from censure or danger. 3. To exempt from paying tax or impost. Immunity. 1. Discharge from obligation. 2. Privilege. Exemption from onerous duty. 3. Freedom. The underlines were added to emphasize that rights, immunities, and privileges are synonymous. Privileges tend to deal with a grant of power to government, allowing government some power to infringe or regulate a retained right. 3 examples of such rights we could constitutionally authorize government to regulate is that of automobiles, arms, and alcohol. As with privacy in Amendment 4, we authorize government very limited power to invade our privacy. Then with Amendment 6, we gave up our right to waive trial by jury in any criminal prosecution. Though society may consider it a good idea for children of age 5 to not operate motor vehicles on public ways, we have not yet authorized government to regulate that right with a constitutional amendment, thus making every law respecting the use of motorized vehicles that of mere suggestions and not enforceable or punishable laws. The same is true of arms and alcohol. No amendment authorizes government to regulate those rights either. At this stage, only the parents or guardians possess the power to regulate the rights and actions of their children until they reach the supposed age of maturity. Every government power touches one of the people's rights, either up close and personal or from a distance. All government levels and branches swear oath to the Constitution of the United States of America, as is required by Article 6. Federal officers and the military generally swear or affirm to defend, support, and uphold the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. The unanimous declaration details how to recognize our domestic enemies in our own government. Those enemies are referred to as tyrants and despots, and are usually exercising one or more of the grievances in the Declaration. When the Constitution grants to government a political power, if it is not specifically and solely reserved to the national government level, the resident citizens of the other government levels may also grant that power to their respective government branches and levels. In this granting, they may not of right make that political power more oppressive than the Constitution of the United States of America authorizes. In this way, the other aspects of that right are protected by Amendment 9. The people's rights are not generally listed in the Constitution, except to prohibit government powers related to the rights listed. A list of exceptions for the administration of justice are seen with Amendments 4 through 8 and 13. These amendments grant limited powers for specific conditions. Government powers for the city, county, state, and federal levels are specifically listed and limited to only those powers granted in the Constitution of the United States of America. The Constitution of the United States of America applies to all government officers of the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, as well as to all government levels because of Article 6. This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers both of the United States and of the several states shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. Government power is granted by the governed, therefore listed. Being listed, the powers are numbered and limited in scope. Knowledge is power. Governments try to know everything about every person. Who has what arms, where, and how many? Who has fortunes, where, and how much? Who likes what sports, what shows, what products, etc.? All that information helps the government to unethically control the population. The people's ignorance creates blissful politicians. The United States American has the best resources for knowing what rights are, as well as knowing how to identify honorable or treasonous political powers. These resources are the unanimous Declaration of the United States of America and the Constitution of the United States of America. The United States American strives to make certain that their society is well informed about how they are supposed to keep government under their control, in accord with their contract's terms. This requires each of them to engage others in conversations about the Declaration and the Constitution, as well as propose laws and candidates to better secure their rights. This knowledge is powerful. It helps a person know what their rights are, as well as the limits on government power. It helps the person recognize when another citizen abuses a right by unjustly violating the rights of others. It helps to know when government personnel violate powers granted to them or when they exercise powers not granted. When government exercises any ungranted power, too many citizens look the other way, especially when it works in their favor. Yet they put up a big fuss when that power works in favor of others. This is how tyranny and despotism grow. The government's power and the people's rights. Unfortunately, this is often presented as the government's powers versus the people's rights. The Declaration deals with how the people are supposed to work together to properly control their government towards the ends of equally securing each other's rights, thus, clean, honest government. The Constitution deals with the specific powers granted to government. When government officers violate the Constitution, the governed people must enforce the rule of law of the Constitution of the United States of America to the tune of treason, as defined in Article 3, Section 3. When we, the governed people, are not willing to enforce our laws of the Constitution on our government officers, why should we expect them to willingly follow our design? It is important to know what is war, so that we can recognize when our government declares war against us. Wars that continue to this day. Some of those wars our government has been winning against us since 1776. The unanimous Declaration of the United States of America describes such constitutional violations as tyranny and despotism. When the governed people enforce these contracts as the laws they are, we secure to ourselves clean, honest government, not only for today, but for the next generation as well. The more frequently enforced, the government officers will put the citizens, the governed people, and their rights foremost in their duties. When the Declaration states that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, the government powers are there to protect the people's rights. When this happens, the people have clean, honest, and transparent government, with no conflict between the people's rights and the government's powers. From the correct perspective page, the governed people should see themselves as the owner-controllers over their government. When anyone sees the government unjustly attack any individual or group, they should be getting others to help them protect those who are unjustly attacked. Those social misfits, unwanted by the rest of society, are the most difficult and the most important to defend. Such is the case of the homeless camp closures, drug users, arms owners, among other groups. Money is a powerful slave master. Too few people will risk arrest while helping others, if they might lose their jobs, their social standing, etc. This is why tyrants and despots rely so heavily on this money master. It keeps the people enslaved mentally, subject always to the government's will. Up next, know what is war. Governments derive their just power from the consent of the governed, 1776. The governed people, by design, are intended to work together as a unified body, controlling the government's power, equally protecting each other's rights. Share to help get and keep clean, honest government. End page content.